All right, welcome back to the Iron Sights podcast. My guest today is John Constantine. John, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege.
I'm honored to have you. Just a little bit of a quick insight. I got introduced to you by a good friend, mutual friend of both of ours. His name is Jeff Dahl. Works with the Tenecar Group. If you were in the mill or law enforcement and you are looking at concealed holsters, and in some of that low vis stuff, then Jeff's probably a guy you've come in contact with or heard about. I just want to thank Jeff publicly for putting us together. Anytime Jeff makes a recommendation to me, I'm going to take it seriously. I know a lot about his background. I've spent quite a bit of time with him, and he is a real one. And when he said, hey, you got to talk to this guy, John, because we did a lot of time together. He's got an interesting story. He's recently retired from the United States Secret Service. And he's got some real insights that, fit the theme of the show and kind of where you've been taking things. And I think it'd be a good guest for you. So here we are. So that said, we're going to jump right in here. I just kind of gave the high level stuff that you had a career in government service. John, just talk about yourself. Maybe you can start wherever you want, finish wherever you want. Let's not go too deep into this because I think let's let this thing develop. But just talk a little bit about your growing up, where you came from, how this thing started for you, and then we'll get into the details that I want to cover with you today.
I appreciate it again. I was born in New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey and pretty much didn't really travel the world. I grew up there. I wrestled in New Jersey, and then I went to college in New Jersey, right? So after that, I didn't know what I was doing in my life, but sad 9/11 happened. And where I grew up, I could see the towers. I saw them get hit. I saw them smolder for months afterwards. And I wanted to do something, right? Whatever my career path was at that point, it was in science and technology up to a certain point. And I decided to enter into the government somewhere. Everybody was pointing fingers at me, telling me that, you have a degree, apply to all these places. And the short version is the service scooped me up quickly and first. And I accepted the job. I wanted to do something. And my kind of ignorance, I was like, all right, let's do it. I got a job now. Let's go.
Okay.
And that's how I got into the service, a quick, short version. And it was right for 9/11.
All right. So a lot of folks went that same path in different directions. It was military, law enforcement, first responders. It was an interesting time in America that obviously anybody that lived through that, there was a certain level of patriotism that came out of that, and I think people put their own kind of needs and thoughts aside for a second and thought about bigger picture. It's unfortunate. I think we've gotten a little bit lost when we start to focus on things that don't probably need as much attention, and we should get back to that. It's unfortunate that an event like that sometimes needs to happen for people to open their eyes and shake the cobwebs out a little bit. But I can appreciate that. And so with the Secret Service, I learned a lot about it in this last 2 years. Things I didn't know. I'm 50 years old now, and you see things, right? Like my image, my take on the Secret Service is what you see on TV, right? What you're presented. You got guys in black suits that are walking around. You got dignitaries, presidents. There's events, and you see these guys walking around, and they're all kind of dressed the same. They all kind of look the same. They're all kind of heads, turning, just making sure, being aware of their surroundings and whatnot. And so for me, it was always kind of like, yeah, these are the dudes in the background that are there when stuff goes down. And I'm also old enough to remember some of those things and how they happen. I missed the Kennedy stuff. I was a little young. I wasn't quite there for that, but I was around for Ronald Reagan and the assassination attempt there back in the 80s. And that was a big one. There was a lot of talk around it then, and there was a lot of stuff on the news and video and whatnot. And that was like the first. My impression was, these are the guys that are going to stand in the way when harm is trying to be inflicted on one of these people that are important to the United States, particularly government. Then I learned there is a very large structure there that encompasses a lot of things. And it boggled my mind actually when I started to get into it, because I didn't realize all the different layers. could you, kind of in a Reader's Digest version, kind of go through how the U.S. Secret Service is structured and the different things that happen there inside that institution?
Sure. Well, I'm gonna do the best I can. An entire capabilities brief, right?
Right. No, not that. Not that. I'm just more like from hierarchy down. Like you
Yeah.
got a lot of different, a lot of different pieces of this thing. It was actually fascinating to me for me to learn about it.
Well, I'll just split it first, and we have the investigative side of service, and then we have the protective side of the service. The investigative side does all this stuff with money and specifically money and a lot of technical cyber stuff now. We're like really good at it. And when I started, I was on like a money laundering task force when I first started
Okay.
on the secret back in like 2002 or three. And I did the protection stuff and then in between. So there's different facets of that. So, but I'm going to leave the investigation side alone for a
Yep.
little bit. It does include protection stuff, like they'll investigate when people make threats and a lot of like protective related investigations. But so the protective side, there are a host of divisions that do a whole bunch of different things. There's the uh, uh, protect, president's protective division. I'm just going to say the division's name and stuff instead of just saying it. But there's the vice presidents. There's the dignitary, where they do the head of state, and they also do like the candidate nominations, right? So when there's candidates, they'll protect those. When we get blessed off by Congress to protect whoever it is that we're going to protect, and then outside from that, there's a special operations division, which I spent the majority of my career in. And then there's the technical security. There's so many different divisions that do all this different stuff. I just rattled off probably 5 or 6 of the big ones to
Yep.
include a special services division that does a lot of vehicle maintenance, and not just like vehicle maintenance, like we're changing the oil. We're talking about like specialized vehicles, which most of them I can't discuss, nor could I, because I'm not I'm not a mechanic that fixes those things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these different facets, and you just like pick one and we can talk about it. But it just keeps going on forever.
Yeah. There's also a uniform division, right?
Uniform division,
There's the uniform division.
They'll fall under the protective side, and they'll protect like the White House and certain other facilities that we have and the area around there. Those guys work. I always say to my guys, I was like, "Oh, those guys work for a living. Like they're outside walking around in the cold, right?" So,
Right.
God bless them all.
The folks you see standing outside the White House, right? Security booths and things like that. So, and I think people have seen a lot of that, unfortunately, in the last 10 years. They've especially with the dawn of social media. I guess, like high level, I kind of look at it in two categories. You have and you broke those down well. I kind of look at it as you got a uniform division, is kind of what we just described last, but then there's also the special operations division, right? And then there's all these different components of that and all the different things that they do, and it's pretty vast. When I got on, there's canine division, right? There's explosives, hazmat. There's all kinds of stuff, right? So with that, you get opportunities. So let's talk about the opportunities that you had. So you talked a little bit about the investigative side, and then moving into some dignitary protection, and then ultimately you're getting into what's known as the counter assault team. Maybe talk just a little bit about what that team is and kind of the job that I guess, without going into too much detail, obviously, but yeah, tell us a little bit about CAT.
The counter assault team, and it's not. You could look up and see various different postures that we have, but the counter assault team is an augment to all the divisions. So when specifically to the president, but to anybody that the CAT, right, is his acronym, is assigned to, they're meant to respond to, and without getting too much into it, but they're meant to respond to organized threats against whatever that's the assignment is. And I say the assignment because it could be an individual in the case of the president, or it could be a venue, or it could be a bunch of individuals with a bunch of different CAT teams like all over the place. They're highly trained. They're some of the smartest guys I've ever known in my life. Sometimes not the smartest guys I've ever known in my life, right?
It comes with the territory, right?
The
Yeah.
territory, but I'm one of them. Uh, I love them all. It was one of it's one of the few places in the service that you have to go through a selection and be selected, and you could be sent home if you don't perform to the standards. And then once you make it onto the team, and I used to say, once you walk the halls, special operations division, then you get an operator number, and then you're blessed off. Then you get to travel around the planet with whoever it is that you're assigned to. It is a tactical unit. They don't dress in, well, it's like, well, it depends
Yeah.
on what we do, but like it's usually full kit, and it's like an assaulter rig that they have. So that's kind of the counter assault team. They're not in the limelight. They're not in the forefront. They're not wearing suits and earpieces following the president around, but they're very close. And that's it's just keep asking questions, and I'll just kind of.
Yep, got you, man. Yeah, no, I got you. I think the way I look at this, and I think people can relate, just in the last couple of years, if they remember July 13th, obviously this was the assassination attempt on President Trump. And, because you were part of the service, or you've been part of the service and you kind of understand the inner workings there, I just wonder, number one, were you retired at that point? Were you on that detail? And two, just kind of your thoughts around that. I'm not interested in like any of the deep background stuff of what could have happened, conspiracy theories, any of that shit. What happened. What I'm more interested is like, how did that impact you? Knowing the things that inside, the people that are on the ground, and the obviously the gravity of that event, and how that trickled down, and how it impacted you personally, but also your team, and how you approach things after that.
I was operations supervisor at the dignitary division when that happened, so I wasn't retired. That was last year, 2024. I just retired in June 2025. And when it initially happened, I was just like, one question. There's a lot going on there. We could talk about like what my opinion of what happened, because I wasn't there and I wasn't part of that whole planning cycle. I wish I was, right? Like I'll be honest with you. Or kind of when these things happen, right? Like a lot of people see it as a disaster, and we try to like kind of hold everything together so we make sure that like everything's not collapsing underneath us. So there's part of it that's like I wish I was there, and I wish I was part of like the I don't want to say like the aftermath of everything. I wish I was there to make sure that some of that stuff didn't happen.
Mm.
And there's a bunch of things that we did wrong, and you saw the same video I did. So like we've all the what came out of it, all these congressional reports that came out, and I'm not going to sit here and dispute any of them. Like these are all like I would talk about the truth, and the truth
Right.
is that there was a lot wrong that day, right? We screwed up, and I say we. I don't like it when people that are service agents say like, "Well, the Butler was a failure," right? Like I don't like that, right? It's like we. I was part of the service. I'm part of it, and if you look at it, and a lot of people will ask about conspiracy theories, right? We go all the way back to JFK. We talked about JFK a little bit, right? Like
Mm.
I'm going to tell you that I say the conspiracy theory begins at like the shooter and his background. Everything else was like, we screwed up. You can call it incompetence. You can call it, you want to deflect responsibility, laziness. We can go through and just keep going. Like that's where the fault lies, in my opinion, from what I know, right, internally. And sometimes people like want this like giant smoking gun. It's like, aha, this is why this happened. And I think there was a series of events that occurred that led up to that point. Take the shooter, which is what's his background stuff. Like the service doesn't investigate that, so it's hard for me to know much about it other than what you hear. Like
Mhm.
coming from outside agencies, and like what I hear on the underground, which is may or may not like be true. So it's like
Sure.
worthless to even
I
talk
can
about.
appreciate that. Yep.
But what happened that day? So like that's that part of it, and a lot of people want to know, and they're like, "Well, whose fault was it?" I was like, "It wasn't like just one person's fault, right? Like we did this together. You can read the reports, and you'll read in it, and I won't dispute any of that stuff that's in there, right? So like that's the first thing that I'll say about all that. We can, if you ask if you about a specific part, you can ask me if I can answer it. I will. But like I think that's a lot of people want that uh the kind of overall explanation, like for in one like elevator speech for me to tell you what everything that went wrong. The
Yeah,
second,
they want me to cut this into a 15 or 30-second reel and put it out there. And we've cleared it all up for you guys. Yeah,
it,
John cleared it all up for you.
and I wish I could just say it to make it go away. Everybody would talk about it for like a week and then it would go away, right? And I wish I could do that, and I can't, right? So that's like the truth coming from my perspective.
Not can't because can't because you can't talk about it. It's veiled in secrecy. Can't because this is a very complex problem. We
Yes.
talked about this at the top of our podcast, which was, all the different layers that have to interact, the interagency work, the pre-planning, all the things that happen on the ground. And then once something happens, if a mistake was made or whatever, like how people have to adjust, like it's a complex problem. Is that accurate? Is that in terms of like the can't answer there?
I'm not unwilling, other than classified things or sensitive
Totally
things
got it.
you can't talk about outside, or I can't, right? A lot of people want to talk about our tactics. I'm not going to talk about our tactics, right? Like I'm not going to like so somebody can dissect them. Um, but you saw the same video, so like it's not like I'm unwilling, and I believe that we need to take responsibility, and we have taken all these. There has been some good things that have occurred coming out of it in technology and communication and stuff like, and there's a lot of areas. Um, so there have been movements forward, and the director now is, at the time that I left, is pushing a lot of initiatives, right? So like there is advancement going forward, and hoping that this doesn't happen ever again, and nor should it. I don't ever want it to happen again, because like the other part of your question was how did it affect me when it happened. The first thing I thought of was like this was our assignment, right, the president at the time, was he okay? All I kept hearing was like there was blood cascading down, and I just thought, I'm like, holy crap, this is what JFK, right? That day must have been like, I thought the worst. It was like the worst feeling ever that my organization failed. It crushed me. My friends that were there, I know what their responses were. Well, not knowing what happened, just hearing about it on some, I say the radio, but it was
Right.
on a phone somewhere.
Through the phone, right.
Right. And like my friends are over there. These are people that I've gone through an entire career with. And they're like, what happened to them? Are they safe? Holy shit. Right. And then afterwards, when I watched the video of what happened, then I could start breaking it down. Then some things started to subside. Then there was like embarrassment for what happened. Right. I can see things that maybe a civilian might not be able to like understand what happened. So I'm sitting there, and I remember the video. I'm watching the video. It's not live. It's already been streamed like 50 times, and I'm like yelling at the TV.
That's TV.
Oh, for the love of God, do this, right? Like,
Right.
and I'm like screaming at the because I want them. I'm trying to like lean over to like will something to happen, and it's that like how it affected me afterwards. It's like, again, I can come to terms with the fact that I had little to do with that specific event, but it also, on a grand scheme of the service, it hurt me because it's like all these people are out there and being like, oh, ha, ha, you guys are stupid. And like, I talk about the things that we did bad, but like also put yourself in some of like, and take some of like my friends, right? The people that were standing on the stage, stand on the stage that just got shot at. and maintain your composure. And then we can dissect like the tactics and stuff, but like that's not what I'm talking about. Maintain your composure because you're just standing on a place that just got shot at,
Mhm.
right? And to display that composure, we can discuss of things that should have happened or shouldn't have happened. Again, like everybody, we're all Monday morning quarterbacks, right?
Yep,
But
everybody's got an opinion, man. Everybody
they
has an opinion.
stood there not knowing what was going to happen next, right? And then the rest of it happened. There's all these things that people will replay the video and look at. And I too, like if some of the stuff bothers me too. And I'm like yelling at the TV, I'm yelling at the video. I'll watch the video and I'll slam my phone down and I'm like, like, and it gets to me, not because I'm mad, because it's like it affects me personally in some way, but it affects all of us, right?
Mm.
And this is like the service is like, I don't know, like 70 something hundred employees uh, all the way around. And it is like this small family. And
Mm.
it's hard for you to be like, I have nothing to do with that. I wasn't there. I'm good.
Well, it might
Right?
be easy for some, but like what I know about you and the things that we've talked about, that's an impossibility.
That was like one of the things and then as time went on, when people will say stuff on social media, my favorite was like all the people that stayed at a Holiday Inn Express that became security experts all of a
Right.
sudden. They, and,
Obnoxious.
and it, like you're calling for the service to some people are like, oh, we just dismantle the service and it should be a private, contractor. And like, my response to that is like, just read what Machiavelli says about hiring mercenaries. And then like that kind of dissolves that, right? Like that's how what I feel about that. But more so, it's like you, if you know so much better, you do it, right?
Mhm.
Nobody talks about the thousands, I'm going to say thousands of missions that occurred last year through the campaign all the way up to right now that were all successful. Thousands, not like dozens or hundreds, thousands. And it is a very, take that giant mistake and failure. It is. Right? I'm
Mhm.
not going to pretend. I'm not going to sit there and sugarcoat it, right? And we can't let that happen again. However, this is like what we're talking about, like self-esteem and self-worth. Sometimes you have to be like, hey man, like we're all sitting around in the room, be like, we fucked up royally, right? I don't want to curse, I apologize, but like it's like we screwed up royally. Like, well, hold on, and everybody feels down, everybody feels like crap, and this is like part of like this is like another aspect of what you asked.
Part of the process. Mhm.
The morale is the one thing that needs right across the service. And there is many aspects of people and all of us together, our morale is crap. That affects us going forward. Yet with the constant bombardment of, again, the Holiday Inn Express security experts telling us how bad we did over and over and over and over again. And it's like, we get it. We understand, right? And we're the ones that are out there working these details. And at some point, these kids went out and accomplished thousands of missions more afterwards. And they kept going out. And I have to highlight that because these men and women in the service, despite that happen, and despite the having our name dragged through the mud, got up and went out and kept going. Some of them bitched and complained like there was there was no tomorrow. But a lot of the other ones are like I'm never going to let this happen again.
Right.
And the morale is something that, as a first line supervisor, I dealt with it going back out on these other details, talking to some of these kids that were there, talking to some of these kids that have trauma because they were carrying the bodies back and like have blood all over them. And they're doing like, right. Like that they're not going to forget that. Like, right. And even one life lost, God rest his
Mhm.
soul, is a failure, right? Like my heart breaks when I watch those interviews, and we can never let that happen again. But that failure afterwards, if we keep talking about it and bringing ourselves back to that moment, telling us how bad we were that day, when all of these other things going forward that we're doing to just to step forward and move forward and making sure this never happens again, those are two separate things. And the service right now is like, we always say in the service, it's like, oh, tell me what you did yesterday, right? Like, tell me, like, wait, what was the last thing I don't care what you did, right? Because when like you're up for a promotion or you're up for whatever advancement or position, all they care about is what you did yesterday.
Right.
If you were great for 10 years and you screwed up yesterday, you're done,
That's all
right?
they remember. Mhm.
But so this is the opposite, right? Like we screwed up once and we're moving forward, but we keep referring back to that day. And that thing is built into every single mission that we do. Like when we brief, it's like, hey man, like communications, July 13th. Let's not let that happen again. Right? Hey man, right? Like, is everybody in the right position? July 13th. It's not happen like that happen again. And we just go through that. It's built into us now where we do it to ourselves. And like we're trying to heal as an agency and move forward. And like the failure of that and the resolve of the men and women that are there, those are two different things. And to keep harping back on it hurts everybody. That's like the third part of like my answer to that. There's like
Mhm.
like what happened that day, how it affected me, and how it affects us.
Mhm.
Like those three are like as an individual too. Like it's easier for me because I wasn't there. So it wasn't like something that because I knew what I was capable of. And like I wish that I could have done something to make it better. Right. And yeah, make it better by making sure that doesn't happen again. That's the best like that I could do right now, right? Like in that goes back to everything that we just talked about. So like that's kind of how I view the whole thing right now. I don't deflect what happened. You can ask me specific something, I'll try to answer it. But it and also there's like the second part where somebody will say like, "Oh, you're a Secret Service agent. You suck because of that day." And you're like,
Mhm.
"Okay, like I guess I'll take it, right?" Like because again, it goes back to like the man in the arena. I guess you know how easy that was, and we shouldn't have happened, all right? And there's more nuance than that. And like that day wasn't right, but like those are two different things. Those are
I agree.
it's very hard. It's easy for people to just go back and be like, "Hey, do you remember
Yeah.
uh, what was that like?" I don't want to bring him up. Like it was like a sports analogy where the guy messed up and his career was over, and then everybody just remembers him for that day, and that's it, right? It's like something
Yeah.
out of Gilmore.
Never mind the other 3 Super Bowls he won or whatever the
It
case.
doesn't
No,
matter, right?
it's
Like, hold
it's
on,
it's it's like the saying goes, like, one bad cop in Tennessee does something egregious or makes a mistake, not egregious, just makes a mistake or something is questioned. There's a narrative that gets run, right? Nobody really ever hears how that thing resulted in the end, but that impacts every other cop, every other firefighter or whatever or whoever it might be across the world, or across the country, and they have to deal with the implications of that, with the public and with the court of public opinion, and again, yeah, the Holiday Inn Express, news journalists and security experts that are out there, trying to have an opinion about it. Now, I have very few questions about the specifics that happened that day. I'm not going to try and understand all of those things. Like that's for the institution to understand, and I think the display of what they learned from that has already been seen, and that we've now run thousands more missions where nothing has happened, and part of that is from what we learned from the mistakes that were made that day, and some of the good stuff as well. There were things, you mentioned it, like the resolve, that comes from having to deal with something like that, the bravery in some cases of
these
of, of
these
what had to
kids,
happen there. Yeah.
these kids, and I call them kids because I'm old. Like before I left, I ran a detail. I put my hand on someone's shoulders and I called them son, and just
Mm,
realized how old I am, right?
mm,
But these kids are trying so hard.
mm,
They need leadership and guidance and like they trying so hard to make sure it doesn't happen ever again. And like they feel responsible, and like most of them were never
Weren't
there.
there. Right.
And that's like the morale part, that they carry that guilt, even ever so, right? Like most of them do. They said like some of them might not, but I will argue that most of them have this belief that they're trying to do something greater than themselves, and it's hard when we mess up, right? And it's like, I'm not saying it's okay. Like I don't like what happened that day, right? Like but we have to move forward.
Yep.
We keep going back to that place, and like the media is going to do it for us. The people, like, they're going to do it for us. Like we can't do it to ourselves.
You mentioned a couple of things I think a lot of people listen to the show can relate to. There's a selection process. And then once you've made it through the selection process, then there's a pipeline from there, like of moving through, the process of now getting up to speed. You don't just pass selection and then you're, in doing all the cool guy jobs. I mean, what are some of the things you got to do as a new guy or a young guy to kind of, I guess, earn your stripes, earn some respect, and be maybe selected for kind of some of the more, I don't know, higher profile stuff?
Are you talking about it just in the service in general? Or
Yeah. Well, no, let's talk about Cat. Let's keep it Cat, because obviously we could probably go down tons of rabbit holes on some of the other stuff. But let's just talk about like your experience with Cat. Like, what are some of the things that you were learning like right away that were either eye opening or, at the time, and that you had to put in a bunch of time into to just figuring it out?
A lot of the stuff is just like anywhere else. The on the job training side, you can learn all the tactics that you want. The on the job training side, once we get in, and you understand, like it's very paramilitary unit that operates in a civilian environment, and not just a civilian environment, in this high profile political environment. So there are times where it's nobody wants to see these guys like frequent
Right.
around the camera, and there's other times where they want to see these guys frequenting around the camera. So there's that just diplomatic management of how you are viewed in the public eye, and sometimes internally to each other as well. And that is something that you have to learn by being there, because you walk through the door and you have an assaulter rig, and you know how to enter rooms, and you know how to conduct operations, motorcade operations, and do all this like counter ambush stuff. And nobody ever talks to you about how to deal with this like diplomatic sides, political side, which is has a lot to do with what team you're on, and like the leadership, and the leadership, not just from the special operations division, but outside of it, when we're dealing with the president's detail, the vice president's detail, and what those supervisors and their leadership, they need and they demand from us, and how to manage both, so that the counter assault team, when we're running our operation, for us to do our job the best we can, we have to understand the needs of the division that we're supporting, because we are a support entity, right? We're there as kind of their safety blanket in case something really goes wrong. And they're trying to do their job, and they're trying to convey the message to us as to what they need for us, from us. And sometimes there's constraints involved.
I was just going to ask that.
There's constraints, whether it's image, like of what we're wearing, where we are, how many of us there are, multiple teams, where we're staged, where we start from, what we're carrying. So there's all these things that you go through the basic school, and it's so much fun, right? You get to enter rooms and shoot guns and run motorcades, and you learn all these tactics. Nobody talks about all this other stuff because it is such a high profile agency. Forget like the Cat for a second. And we have to plug into that. We are just like one slice of this bigger pie. And that is like a huge endeavor, because it causes, like, a lot of people they end up making decisions sometimes that they don't want to make. Right? Like they're like, oh, they wanted us to hide behind these curtains, but it's like, we can't respond from here. We have to respond from there. So we're having these negotiations internally. And sometimes the answer is easy, but we make it hard because we start getting all of our all this other stuff. There's political, there's like diplomacy that we have to have. Some guys aren't good at it. They're not good at speaking to other people and having diplomacy, right? And other people are just like, no, this is what we're doing. And then, like you get two people with the wrong egos together, and that just escalates into who knows what. You need a third party, and then everybody's got to go, right? So
that word ego is, I think, the thing I was kind of expecting to hear is that, yeah, very, let's just say, high achieving, highly trained, very aware folks, right? And they're all trying to do a good job. They all have a job to do, whatever that is, and they all have to fit together. So I imagine the diplomacy and the ego fitting together would be probably one of the hardest pieces or the hardest challenges to overcome on a regular basis, especially in such a fluid environment. I can't imagine going to an event, whatever that happens to be, where somebody's going to be, let's say it's the president, is going to an event, and you have this well-laid plan. It's already been, scouted. Things have been laid down. Everybody's seemingly on the same page. And then when you get there, you throw one wrinkle into that. Something happens. Something isn't the way it was planned, or wasn't the way it was supposed to be. Maybe somebody didn't get the message, or maybe somebody didn't do the job the proper way, and then everything's got to shift. Now there's a communication that has to happen, between everybody. There's probably a little bit of figuring it out as you go, and we're this could be anywhere on the planet, right? This could be in some foreign country somewhere where things are very limited, where obviously we maybe have less support. And so how do you pick up the pieces? How do you fall into the places that need to be in? I wonder, from like your position, on that side of things, how often was it that you were in a position where you were like, this is bad, this is not a good situation, versus the percentage of times you're like, hey, this was really well done and we did a good job here, everybody did a pretty good job? Can you give me some type of picture of that?
there's both. I could talk about.
I'm sure, that's why I asked.
So first, you mentioned communication. That's like the number one thing, especially on my team, that we just harped on forever. And it's not just the communication within each other, right? That communication is done inherently because we knew each other and we had this understanding of how we were going to be reliable and predictable to each other. And then throw the communication on top of it, which is like the equipment that we use to just talk to each other or other adjacent teams or adjacent mission units that we were near, right? I don't like saying that, like adjacent mission unit, but like, yeah, that's what they were, like other mission units.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I think people get that.
And so like the communication part, number one, is important, but also the communication from us to the detail that we were supporting. So, just trying to just think of an example where I didn't like, we were outside the venue. It was a foreign trip and we had really bad intel. All right. Like it was not a fun trip, right? Every single movement that we had, and this was, I'm trying to remember how many years ago, right? It was maybe 15 years ago, right? So every single movement that we had, the host government was throwing constraints on top of us that weren't agreed upon. So they were trying to block our motorcade for whatever reason. They were trying to slow us down. They were trying to remove the tactical assets, which was not just us, but other tactical assets. And at some point, there's all these checkpoints. At some point, somebody blows through one of these checkpoints on foot. And I'm going to describe this to you, and you just tell me what you think, right?
Okay.
And we shouldn't have been where we were. We should have been positioned somewhere else. Us, like my team. And somebody blows past the checkpoint, and they have, in a place where, like, not everybody has a cell phone, but he had a backpack on. He was just clean shaven completely, had a sweat line across his chest over a baggy shirt, just a backpack, and is on his phone. He's trying to get as close to a secure area where he's not supposed to be in. So let me paint that picture of what that looks like. And just to see that happen, and we're not supposed to be here for all these reasons. And through no fault of the Secret Service advance, this was the host government just allowing stuff to occur. And also us a little bit, but it was kind of like in the last minute in order to kind of get things done. We just repositioned ourselves just so we can accomplish our task. And there's a whole bunch of chaos that ensued. Luckily, there was no, huge. The guy ended up kind of disappearing back because a bunch of local police officers was trying to restrain him, and he was apparently much stronger and faster than some of them. And that's an example of us. We had a plan that was set. It was broken because of all these things that occurred, right? Like broken checkpoints, telling us to move, not communicating to us that these things are occurring. There's a car that blew at the same time that blew through a checkpoint. On the other side, the other side of the facility that we were at.
Oh, so it's compounded
This is
times two now.
all stuff that's going on, and it's like, all right, like here we go, right? This is about to go off, and the us cat specifically, we have to troubleshoot what's going on and position ourselves in the best possible position in order to accomplish our task. So there's a lot of, we know what our base plan is supposed to be, and then we are adjusting off of the what's occurring. Like this guy came through the checkpoint, and I had my rifle up against the window, rather deciding whether or not I'm going to shoot him, right? And because he's too close, and everything I just described. Is it a homicide bomber? All right, suicide bomber, whatever it is. Right. We don't know. We don't know what the guy is. But it looks like it. All like the intel pointed to what it was, and we're yelling. We're trying to reposition our vehicle. We have to survive in order to do our task. We can't just So there's a whole bunch of these adjustments. That's like a bad scenario, right? Yep. And then there's other scenarios where similar things may occur, and we're in the best position possible. We're in the strongest position because this is what we agreed on, and before everything happened, and there was no adjustments to be made. All we had to do was execute all the adjustments, right? And I would say the cat guys, there's just different mentalities in the service. One is, we'll call them the yellow footprints or ditties, right? Just a year there. And it's like, you're going to go here, and from here, you're going to move over here, and from here, you're going to move over here. And some people can't break that. They need this like hierarchy or this flow chart of what they're going to do. The cat guys are great at adjusting to everything. We're just like, because of the nature of the unpredictability, because every single trip, I will argue that every single trip has these different problems associated with it.
Okay.
All we can do is control where we begin, and from that, reposition ourselves and reevaluate our plan and adjust from there before we have to deploy and deal with whatever we're doing. So those are two different mentality of people, and the special operations community in a whole, not just us. We select for too, right? And other agencies and organizations select for it too, but we want people that are going to problem solve, especially when there's stress involved.
So that's the thing that is coming up for me, and hearing you, it sounds extraordinarily stressful, right? Obviously you want to do your job and you want to be able to do it well. There are split-second decisions that need to be made. Everybody on the team at every level is having to try and make those, communicate about those, what they think that should happen at whatever time. You're in a foreign country, right? You're also exposed, right? In those types of situations. I just wonder, what are you learning about yourself as you're going through these experiences, particularly early on? Like what's happening with your psyche? What's happening with your emotional state? What's happening with your, I would say even emotional regulation? What are the things that you're learning, maybe consciously, but also unconsciously, as you reflect back now and go, I'm away from my family. I'm doing this job. I signed up for this job to do this thing. I think I'm pretty good at it. This is pretty messed up. Like, this particular situation is pretty messed up. A lot of things could have happened. A lot of bad things could have happened. What are some of the things that go through, your head, or maybe your teammates' heads during this type of thing? And how do you deal with it?
A lot of like that specific example, when all these things happen, the one of the best things I started doing, especially when I got a little more seasoned, was doing these quick like after actions of what happened, and I just like obsess about it. Right, like I
Like for like personally, your own after action, or as like a
both
debrief with the team?
both
Both.
especially
Okay.
when I was a team leader for my own team, we did an after action after every operation. Right, like
Okay.
it was
Yep.
impromptu or it could have been something official. So like leave that aside from now because that had a lot to do with the operation and how we conducted it. For
Okay.
me, I would always after action what I did, how I responded to something, and what happened in that scenario. I just gave with the suicide bomber. There whether he was or not, right? Like he went away, but
Right. Right. Right.
pretty sure that's what it was. He, how did I respond to all that? And you learn a lot about yourself during those high stress situations. I responded with trying to get a beat on his head, right? Trying to do my job.
Hmm.
And my loyalty at that moment was to the guys because we needed to survive. There was no like me walking home to my family, right? There was no, none of that. That was like way later. But at
Hmm.
that moment, I had to just think about what I needed to control in that moment, which was my loyalty to not like just me, but to the people like my team that was with me. And those moments not only reveal your nature at that time, like what are you prone to do when those high stress situations? There are also moments that you might not like what you see. You got to tell yourself the truth, right? If you don't tell
Hmm.
yourself the truth, it's kind of a wasted moment. But
Hmm.
two, it reveals your nature. What's your tendency to do, right? Like I was this immature, brash kid, like just self-admitted, right? Like I was like, nobody's perfect. I had to grow into being a leader of men. I had to grow into being a team leader. And even then I had a lot of just like problems in myself that I could identify. But it started off with those moments kind of gave you as an individual, and you could do the tactics and you're like, hey, I really wasn't good at like, shooting from inside a car. Or, like you could do like tactics and skills and stuff. More importantly is what are the decisions that you made? How did you respond? How did you communicate to everybody? Where was your loyalty at that time? And it
Hmm.
was for us. Once we got out of that, I was like, all right, now I got to get home. I got
Yep.
family, right? I got to get home and make sure that like because that's my loyalty, and it expanded from that. Those are like the revelations. Those are the kinds of things that I think about whenever something stressful like that happens. And sometimes I respond poorly. I've gotten in trouble in the service like a lot. All right,
Hmm.
like, and it has to do with me. Again, I was a brash kid, but I do stand up for myself when I think something isn't fair, and that's something that a lot of people don't want to do because they think it affects their career. Um, so like I remember one time I got in trouble. I had supervisors yelling at me, and like they made their point, and I said, "All right, cool. Like are we done here?" And they wanted to keep doing it, and I stood up and walked out, and I was like, "I think we're done here. You're not gonna
Hmm.
speak to me that way." And they don't like that. But two things is like how you do it. I didn't do it well. That the first time I did it, I just got
Hmm.
up metaphorically, but kind of like almost did flip the table over and just walked out on everybody. Uh, had I done it in a bit more diplomatic way, which is what I was talking about earlier,
Yep.
maybe they
Hmm.
wouldn't be able to say anything. But
Right.
regardless of what the issue was, all they remember is me being an asshole,
Hmm.
right? And those are the kind of moments that you sit down and be like, "What did you do, man?" Like,
Yep.
right? You had
I think.
integrity, good job, but you didn't handle it. You made it worse, right? And those are like the moments in your life that you define these moments, and but you have to after action them. You have to sit down and have this hot wash with yourself, and like you can do all the operations and have official after action reports. Those are great. I used to love those, right? Like I obsessed about tactics, and I can write an entire novel about tactics, right? And I wrote all the like the lesson plans when I was an instructor for all those years. Like yeah, I loved it. It was my privilege, and I would be driving, and I tell my wife, I'm like, "Oh, check it out. Look at the posture of these vehicles." All right, and she's like, "Oh my god, would you just please turn the radio on?"
Every wife can. Every wife can. I think from folks like you can relate to that. Yeah, for sure.
But those are the things I think that for to like my opinion of what a leader of men and somebody who's also dangerous is you have to have that ability to move that forward, to move you forward, yourself forward, and start thinking about like your integrity. What is your true nature? Right? Do you tell yourself the truth? Right? All these things are moments in time that measure it. Because we can sit here all we want and talk about like, yeah, man, we're gonna be great. We talk about the truth and we do all this stuff, but it's those moments in time that occur that if you don't listen to what you did, you're gonna do it again. And the more that you do it and it's the wrong response, the more that you fall into this state of like kind of despair and you start don't not to not like yourself and you start your self-worth starts going down and you're just there then. You're just like kind of floating through life.
Yeah, yeah. I want to time you out for a second there because you basically answered the follow-up question. And you started that with saying one of the most important things you do is be honest with yourself. That self-examination, that looking yourself in the mirror and not signing off on your own bullshit, right? Being very honest about it. And when you do that, you're going to find, if you do that, and when you do that, you're going to find you don't like the answers to all the questions that you're asking yourself.
Never
You
will.
know, did I do a good job or didn't I? What was my intention there? What was I thinking about in that particular moment? How does that fit, my loyalty to my team, to the job, the mission, and what I'm trying to get done. There's so many things there. And then you went into kind of how you dealt with it. Like I debriefed with myself. I went through an after action with myself. Sometimes we do it with the guys. I obsessed about it. I obsessed about the things that I
All
did. It
time.
didn't go wrong. But there's a double-edged sword to that, which is what you were getting at there. And that is that can oftentimes lead into this negative mindset of feeling less than or not being worthy or kind of the imposter syndrome thing. And then you have other choices to make. If you can recognize that you're there, like what do you do to get out of that? Do you sit with that? And does that change your attitude? Does that change your mentality? Does that somehow impact your integrity and the choices that you make in life and and on the job? And how do those things impact you? I think that's a struggle that I think a lot of folks I think a lot of men deal with that period. They I think inherently men want to be good. People want to be good. I have that internal belief. I think people inherently are good and they want to be good, but somewhere along the way they lose their way. And where does that start? And you hit it, I think, and it's in those moments. Like, what decision did I make in that moment? And if it was the wrong one, what can I do to make it better or correct it? Or am I just going to pretend that didn't happen and move on and say everything's good? And I think, again, I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. And unfortunately, at some point, I think for just as many people, it catches up with them at some point. It takes them down a path where things can get a little dark, and you get caught in a space and time that isn't so great. And you start to contemplate things, and you think about things differently, and you start blaming people, pointing fingers, things like that, as we look to leadership, and it's this person's fault, or this institution's fault, or this government, or this administration's fault, or whatever else.
Your fault.
Um, yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, like, what can I control?
That's also good.
So,
That's not just negative, right? We're talking about the truth doesn't have to be positive or negative. Like let's take the positive and the negative out when we're talking about you and your self-worth right now, right? Your self-worth is what it is. It's and to be high or low is relative. My self-worth versus your self-worth doesn't like that's like we can't measure that with each other. All I can do
right,
is measure my self-worth, what it is now versus what it was yesterday, a week ago, 5 years ago, whatever, right? What it's going to be 5 years from now. And that's that's like the first with all of this. And that's I'll I just had a conversation with one of my guys, right? Um, he calls me up, we talk about like, hey, I'm trying to do this. How can I do it better? And I just ask him questions. I don't give him any answers, right? I do the Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's like, I just ask him. I was like, hey, okay, So, with every decision that happens, once you tell yourself the truth, you're at this level. And I encourage everybody, once you see something that you don't like, do something that advances that. You're not going to fix it overnight. But I make these two distinctions, right? These are very, I think, relevant to everyone who does anything. The first is your self-esteem, which I believe is not a real thing, right? That word esteem is, we're talking about how you think, your self-esteem, what you think everybody sees you as. That's how I define that. Look up esteem, right? And it's this like the perception of you in public, right? And I say that to make a point now. I'm kind of like being hyperbolic with the definition, but like as self-esteem to me is what you think everybody views you as. Because if you think everybody sees you as this great person, your self-esteem is high.
The hero in the cape.
Right? Yeah, you're a superhero. You're Captain America. Your self-worth is what you actually believe about yourself. Those two are different. And the self-worth is measurable by only you. That's it. Your self-esteem is like, I can sit here and say, hey, Scott, your podcast is great. This is a great place. I love your beard. I'm trying to grow it too, right? Like it's like, and I keep telling you all these great things, and you start to feel good about yourself because that's right. The feedback came from me. The feedback comes from all these other people, right? Which is also great feedback because like your podcast is awesome, right? But like,
yeah, keep it coming, man. Keep it coming. The esteem meter is starting to get into red line here. Yeah,
but
for
the
sure.
other part, like when you have these like after actions with yourself, it's like a baseline. Right. This is your self-worth. This is what you're worth to yourself. And then if you do something to advance that, you start to build your self-worth. Now, sometimes one is at the expense of the other, right? Like sometimes those two can't move up at the same time. Your career is dependent on your self-esteem. The career is dependent on what everybody, for the most part, in most organizations, is what all these people that are the decision makers think about you. Your self-worth is something that may or may not help you get what you want, but it's also something that makes you such a strong, formidable person that you will probably be successful regardless. Maybe not in the arena that you want to be in, but you are going to be successful. And I will guarantee you that once you focus on the worth side, the things that you can control, that all those other things that you want are going to be less important to you. Once your self-esteem starts going, just does whatever it wants, but your self-worth, is that what I wanted to say, starts going up, the higher you make that, the stronger you make that, all these other things will mean less, right? Like all these other things will be like, you will be doing things that's like, hey man, like I can't get this like great, assignment because my buddy
promotion, right?
Yeah,
whatever.
It's like I'm not one of the cool kids, which is fine, but you're basically a leader of men, and you probably not only impacted your own life, your family's life, the people around you, right? Because the what you do, and I be great at whatever it is that you do. Like, and talk about like the first responders, military, law enforcement that follow you. Like, I love you guys all. Like, be great. Go out, do great things, promote, get to the top. We need great people at the top to help make these decisions. However, once you're done, no one's going to remember you. Rarely anybody's going to remember you for what you did. They will remember you though for how you made them feel, right? And that's like a true measure for me of a person's success. Because if you do that and you're this strong leader, if you're a leader of men, a leader of yourself, you control the things that you can control, right? And we're going to get into all this stuff too, right? And as much as you want, you do that, everybody will follow you. You don't have to be the highest seat in the land, because leaders are not, your position doesn't dictate whether you're a leader or not. You're the one that does it. And if your self-worth is high, all this other crap won't mean that much to you. Do it anyway and be great at it, because like we all need you to be up there and to help us. But those two things are different.
Hmm.
And when we struggle with like, I hate my boss, right? I don't want to work for him. He's such an, he's like, it's so hard. I don't want to be here. He's making my life difficult. You can only control what you could control. If there's a way to influence him, and you do that by being good to yourself first. And I don't mean like being selfish and doing all this crazy, like doing constructive things that like elevate your self-worth so that you know who you are. You shouldn't, other people, it's nice to hear it, but that feedback should come from you. Right.
So, yeah. So you have a very interesting, because of your assignments and the years of service that you had, I want to talk about something. And that is, first, the question is, how many sitting presidents did you, or administrations did you actually work under in your time?
Operationally, or
Yep.
when I was in the field office, I wasn't in a protected division. So
Okay.
Operationally, 4 sitting presidents. So Bush,
Okay.
Obama, Trump, Biden, right? So,
Right. Okay. So you've seen a lot of things. You've seen a lot of different levels of a lot of different types of leaders. Right? You've seen a lot of different approaches, and everything that you just packaged there. I wonder how you balance that against things like, now you're working for a quote unquote new boss, right? Who has different morals and different values seemingly and publicly, right? So whatever's being put out publicly, and then whatever's happening behind the scenes, which I'm sure folks like you get a really good look at, right? On things that the camera never sees and the public never hears about. I wonder how you balance all that stuff, self-esteem and self-worth, and in this process of balancing the two, when you find yourself in a position where your morals and values are not aligned with the person that you are working for. And whether that's a direct boss or an indirect boss, in terms of, again, like we go as high as the president of the United States of America, the president of the leader of the free world, to the guy that's sitting in the team leader spot, to the guy that's his boss or her boss or whatever else. How do you balance that stuff? Because I think right now, in the world, just in general, whether you're a first responder, military, or whatever else, I think everybody in America right now is looking at that and struggling with that. Like, I mean, truly struggling with it. It's being forced in our face every day, whether you agree or don't agree with this or that. Like, I think everybody's like questioning, like, how should I respond to this? How do I respond to this? Maybe you can speak to that in kind of the parallel to the things you were just talking about.
sometimes people let their personal opinions dictate what they believe is right or wrong and how to do their job. And sometimes they forget about what their job actually is, right? And so take the president, the highest seat in the land. Whether you agree or not with the administration's politics, it is the position. And I'll make this disclaimer, for a Secret Service agent, I believe that we shouldn't be kind of discussing their personal, issue,
Sure.
whatever they have, because it's like the sanctity of our position. Once we start doing that, all hell breaks loose, and like nobody should,
Totally get it.
right?
I respect that. Yeah, absolutely.
So, like for their individual, and I could tell funny stories, right? Like or like just stories that have no impact whatsoever. Usually, I'll tell stories about when like they'll stop by and like they'll ask us like what the crap those we're wearing, and
Oh yeah.
tell them,
What are you carrying there? Dumb questions, smart questions, some intuitive, some not.
but they
Yeah.
just want to interact with you, and they don't know how else to do it sometimes because they're
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Okay. Good.
They
Yeah,
are
I got
human, right? They are human like you, right? And if they don't
Mhm.
know, then they ask about it, and that's like a good
Mhm.
icebreaker. I would do the same thing if I was going to something that I don't know nothing about. Like, oh, what's this?
Okay.
So, but as you go, like everywhere else, like for me, my job was to do this mission as best as I can, regardless of who the principal was, and then take it a step back, regardless of who the Secret Service team that was doing the advance was, and then taking it a step back, regardless of who my team leader was, right? And that those personal feelings that we have, oh, I hate my boss, or oh, I love my boss, both are irrelevant at that point, because like the bad boss might do something you agree with, and the good boss might do something you disagree with. And
Mhm.
you have to be able to just be like, hey man, like we can't go left here. We have to go right because of whatever the thing is that's going on. Whether you like the guy or not, you have to shut that off. And it kind of goes back to like what I was talking about of like the self-worth part of it. Because
Yes, that's what I'm going with this. Mhm.
there's a true professional, which is like towards the end of my career, the true professional, it didn't matter what my assignment was, right? I did the same thing to myself every time before I was getting ready and to my team. All the pre-combat checks that we do, right? Like it and everything. It was the same thing every time. I made sure everybody was ready. I made sure I was ready. I was ready mentally and I was ready to control what I could control. And I was going to do the same thing and respond the same way every time. Didn't matter who it was, just troubleshoot whatever the problem was in front of me. Take that serious situation where we're talking about life and death things, CAT,
Mhm.
counter assault,
Mhm.
Secret Service, which is what it is. Take that to whatever position that you're in. So when somebody comes to you and is like, "Hey Scott, I need you to do me this favor. Can you can you do me this favor? Break this policy for me, but I need
Mm.
you to do this." But you're friends with me. You know it's wrong. I know it's wrong, but I'm leveraging you because like and it depends what it is too. Like if it's like, "Hey, there's
There's
exploited children that we got to save."
there's levels. Yep.
I'm all
Right.
for it. Let's do it. Or if it's like, "Hey, I just want to do a favor so I look good in somebody else's eye, which has no
Mm.
bearing on anything." And you're like, bro, you're putting me into this situation. And like, I'm leveraging that, right? And you're questioning a whole bunch of stuff because I'm taking advantage of our friendship. I'm taking advantage versus the bad supervisor where something happens and I'm not going to tell him, right?
Mm.
Because I don't trust him. And this is a whole thing with law enforcement, first responders, everybody. Like I'm afraid to say something because they might get mad at me like it's my fault if like somebody does something like in the course of my duties, if somebody does something wrong. And you have to like understand like is the truth is something that you don't have to like think about. Sometimes it'll get you in trouble. I got in trouble for telling the truth, right? Like it and like I got in trouble and it led to all these other things, which ended up being one of the greatest like journeys of my life. But I think that when dealing with all of these supervisors, I had to deal with supervisors and both subordinates, both on both sides, that I had to lead up and lead down.
Mm.
And sometimes it was like sometimes I love the supervisors and I love the guys. Sometimes I couldn't stand the supervisors and I couldn't stand the guys because it was like you can't do this. You're making everybody here look bad. That's easy for a supervisor to look down and just be like, you can't do this. This is wrong. But at the same time, it's hard to do it up because from fear of retaliation, and it doesn't have to be like this formal retaliation. All of a sudden, Scott tells me that, you know, I'm violating policy or the law or whatever. And I know that like I don't like Scott to begin with, but now I know, and every
Mhm.
chance that I get, I'm gonna put you in the corner. And you have to be able to control what you can control, number one. And number two, be okay with your decision that
This could happen. This could
this
be the
could happen,
consequence.
but you're
Mm.
making contingent on like, all right, if somebody's murdering kittens in the corner, okay, like that's bad. You're probably gonna get fired, right? Like it's kind of a thing. But if it's anything else, a lot of people are worried about that how this affects their upward mobility
Mm.
in their respective organizations, or not just upward mobility, but assignments, desirable training, desirable experiences, whatever the case might be in the different organizations. And when something occurs, especially when they can't have a candid conversation with the person who's going to ultimately make the decision or influence the people that are going to make the decision, that turns into like this, going back to everything I talked about. You're worried about just that, where you might not get what you want initially, but if you maintain your integrity through all of this and you do things that build your self-worth, and it's like take our job for example. If somebody was looking at one of these kids and it was like, hey, I don't like this guy, I would just go to the kid and say, like, hey, listen, all of your administrative things, we got to make sure they are crystal clean,
Squared away.
right?
Right.
You're going to look like a superhero. Okay. So we clean up all that. I'll do it with them, right? Because I'm the team leader. I'm trying to make sure that there's nothing that they can hold against them. I was like, all right, cool. All the training requirements as best we could, weapons requirements and stuff like that, right? Let's get all this stuff done. All right. Those are two simple things that we can just control without doing anything.
Yep.
Now, afterwards, it's my job. I'd be like, all right, I'm going to skyline you now. All right. You can do this to yourself, but I would do this to guys. I'm going to,
As a leader. Gotcha.
I'm going to send you out to London. You're going to do this advance for me. Advance is mission planning. You're going to do this advance for me. I was like, well, I'm not sure if I could do it. I'm like, I will make sure you don't fail. I will make sure, right, that you are 100%. You're going to look like a hero. You just communicate with me every day, and we will troubleshoot this whole thing. And I send him out, and he does a good job. And I used to love when the other details, president, vice president, would send me messages and be like, hey, John, like, your guy was great. And I would take that message,
Yeah, I know.
fire it off to the people that don't like my guy. And I'd be like,
Mhm.
oh, I would just want to highlight, Scott Howell and his excellent assignment and all the stuff that he did. And I will fire it off to them. And I will put it in like their evaluation. So take that, for example, because now not only did we get rid of all the simple stuff, it's like clean your room, right?
Mhm.
Make your bed, do like all that stuff in the morning. Like, what is it? Like McRaven's book, like make your bed
Yep.
in the morning.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That echoes in my head. I try to do that for a while. And sometimes my wife is still in bed sleeping and I was trying to make the other side. So just wait, like let your
Simple. Yeah, simple to do, sometimes hard to execute.
Yeah, like, so you get up and then I do it afterwards, right? But take all that stuff out. Again, these are things that you could control. And it sounds stupid because a lot of people are like, John, this is like admin stuff. This is like just weapons quals. We do this with our eyes closed. Yeah, man. But if you don't do it, then they can hold it against you because they don't care about anything else. They'll just look at this one little thing. You control everything, right? And you do the best that you can in the things that you can control. And then you start incrementally you thrive, right? This is how you get what you want. You thrive in the things that you can control. Because after a certain point, people will look and they will think about you and they'll be like, oh my God, John did it again. He did this other thing and it just came out well. He did a good job. All his stuff is clean. We gave him an assignment, maybe is an assignment that nobody cares about, right? They asked me to do this assignment one time and they thought it was going to take me 2 months. And I did it in like 2 days and I turned it in and they were like, oh, like we're going to review this. And they loved it. And the supervisor, like it ate his soul because it was something positive.
Because you knocked it out of the park.
And then you keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And that's where you have these after actions with yourself about whatever it is, right? You're a police officer and you're going out day after day. The way you conduct yourself on traffic stops, the way you conduct yourself. I know a lot of police officers, right? Like one of my friends was a homicide detective and he tells me about all these stories and it's like how he conducts himself every single time. This guy is like super professional. And then behind the scenes, he's a clown. He's like one of us, right? Like he's like joking around with me. He's
Yep.
telling me about how he messed up smoking his brisket and how he had to feed it to the dog and the dog wouldn't eat it. And it's like, but you keep doing that. Eventually you become like, I talk about demons. I talk about it like metaphorically, like your demons, the little voices in your head that kind of tell you to do all this stuff that you don't like or that drive you crazy, right? You become their demon. After a certain point, all they could do is think about you. Every time you do, it comes across the desk. You're like, I don't like the guy, but he's killing me right now because he keeps winning.
Yeah,
right?
You're living rent free in their head.
And you do that not by worrying about what decisions they're going to make. right? I used to I would write off decisions. I'd be like, well, I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to be a team leader. That was like a thing at a certain point because I was at the training center and I would always push the envelope to update our tactics, to update our procedures, to update our TTPs, right?
Mhm.
And I would constantly push the envelope and I would just piss everybody off because I believed in it and I believed in us. And I was doing it for these reasons that like my wife tells stories of me being awake at like 2 o'clock in the morning, pacing back and forth in our house. And she's like, why did you? I'm like, because man, like there's somebody in Mongolia right now doing an advance that doesn't know this stuff. Right. And it's for us.
Mhm.
And like some people's heads might not be able to wrap around that, but you just keep doing it. And it was at the expense of my career. They're like, wow, like you're pushing all this stuff and you're pissing everybody off. And it's like, well, is it good? Well, yes. Is it the right thing? Well, it's debatable. Is it the right thing? Right? Is it the
Right.
right thing for us? In what our mission is, what the truth is, what we do, are these updates? Are these things that we need to? Yes. Right? Okay. I still don't like you, but right. But good job.
You can't argue that.
You can't.
Yeah, there's a couple things that come up for me here. One is the how you do one thing is how you do everything principle, right? And what are you doing when people aren't looking? But obviously the making your bed every morning as the starting the day as a routine, like this is
I
what you
love
do.
that.
And once you get done with that, then you move on to the next thing and you do that and you knock it out. I think a lot of what you're saying right now is probably really relatable. A lot of conversation we get on the shows with law enforcement, particularly around the use of firearms, when we start talking about what firearms training looks like in law enforcement, but it's also this spreads into everything. That's just an example. I mean, if I went into the fire service, there's going to be 10 examples there. If I went into, the nursing, if I went into anything, right, in business, there's going to be these things. But my point there being is a lot of folks right now pushing back or pushing, hey, we need to be training in this manner, whether that's combatives, driving, fitness, fighting, whatever. And there's this kind of a push to an end state, which is like this was what the standard should be. And the focus to me is like on the wrong thing, right? And I'm not saying there shouldn't be standards. And I'll also say at the same time, I think those that exist, most people would argue those metrics for those standards are probably pretty low. And you probably had those same experiences, which is why going back to what you were doing as an instructor, which was we can be so much better. We can be so much better. I don't know exactly where this could get to, but what I do know is this will make it better. Let's start with that. Like, how can we make it better? And what are the things that need to be talked about? And it's the truths that you're talking about and sticking to those and doing that constant pushing so that people recognize the truth. In terms of ever reaching a standard, we'll never get there unless we recognize the truths, that what we're doing is inefficient, ineffective. We're leaving people unprepared. We're putting them in positions that they shouldn't be in. And who's at fault for that? We are. And then to go back to how can we change that? There are things that we can do to make it better, and it will change. We know that if we start doing something, we change what's currently going on, it will have an impact. And if you're well thought out, obviously, and you've got you've got experience and you have that self-motivation to keep pushing it, it likely will. I think that's where people run into the most amount of trouble is knowing when to and when not to push. Like the silk versus sandpaper analogy, like you've already said, you've self-admittedly, man, I've got myself into trouble a lot of times. Probably a lot of people that I work for didn't like me, but I gave them zero room to disagree with fundamentally or foundationally what I was trying to do, right? Because they knew who I was as a person, as a leader, as a teammate, as an instructor, whatever the job title happens to be, that This guy runs squeaky clean. He does everything he's always asked to. He delivers on time, sometimes in front of time. He doesn't overpromise and underdeliver. He does the opposite. He says he's going to get the job done, but he gets it done in a time span or in a way that's remarkable, in a good way, kind of thing. And those are controllable things. Those are controllable things, and it all kind of comes full circle here. Again, going back to the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And the question kind of started with what do you do? How do you handle yourself when you're in this situation where you recognize you're not aligned? There's not alignment between a boss or a policy or a leadership team or somebody on my team or whatever else. And that ends up becoming the focus is the non-alignment, where the question really is like, well, what can we do to be aligned? Where can I influence this situation? And again, I try not to make these, and this is a very constructive conversation, and that's really why I wanted to talk to you, because I knew it would get here, and this is what this would be. But I try not to ever make the show or the conversations I have just about griping. There has to be solutions to this, and the solutions lie within. Like for a lot of these problems, it starts with the individual, it starts with the person. It starts from within, and it starts doing the things that you've talked so articulately about for so long. And I think that gets lost because people find themselves drifting to what's comfortable, drifting to the corner of the room or the water cooler, where they're getting support in the griping that they're doing or the underperforming that they're doing. And it's easy to find, man. It's so easy to find. It's way easier to find that and find those groups, because those people are looking for safety. And what I hear you saying is like, that was repulsive to me. Like the problem is that we're looking for the safety mechanism or the easy route or the easy button. And that's not the answer to fixing the problem.
I'll step back for a second, right? So the organizational, and these are, of course, my opinions. Everybody runs their organization differently. An organizational standard, all right, let's talk about standards, is everybody looks at, they want to make this standard so high so that we're all great. For the larger the organization, the less achievable that is.
Yeah, got you. Yep.
You need to focus on your floor. All right. Not the ceiling, the floor. So like you elevate the floor or enforce the floor. Sometimes the floor is not even enforced.
Right.
And then guys squeak through and you're like, oh,
now you just move the floor down to the basement.
Just move the
by
floor
doing
down
that.
Lower.
Yeah.
So I recall I had this conversation. It was during one of our selections, and it was kind of like this stress iteration. And the guy didn't pass it. You get more than one chance to try to pass this iteration, right? And he didn't pass it. And my supervisor or over me is like, hey, how close was he? I'm like, close enough that he didn't pass.
Right.
And again, this was before like my journey of kind of self-discovery and diplomacy. But he's like, well, can we just pass him? I'm like, no, he's got to do it again. He could pass. He's close. He could pass. He knows what he did wrong. Like,
he's capable.
He's capable. In the selections, I was very stoic because I kind of treated everybody the same. I did treat everybody the same. And I'd be like, candidate Howell, this is your score. You need to score this in order to pass. All right, you have one more attempt. Right?
It's the truth, right? It's what it is, man.
And then it's like, because like in a selection, you have to be stoic just to give everybody the equal opportunity, like the same chance. I don't want to be like, hey, you're the best. Don't worry about it. If you just do this or pat, and then this guy don't tell anybody, you have to, because it helps you evaluate everybody.
Sure.
So he's like, hey, how close were we? I was like, close enough that he didn't pass. And he's like, well, can we just pass him? And he's just lecturing me on how we need more guys on the team. I'm like, hey man, I'm all for it. I want more guys on the team too.
Agreed, right?
So hopefully he passes the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was like, he wanted me to just push him forward into the next part of the selection. I wouldn't do it. He was furious.
Yeah, there's people listening to this going, "Oh my God, that happens.
And,
That happens. I see it every day."
and it's furious, and I wouldn't allow it because it demeans the integrity of the entire counter assault team program, right? And you can do that. You do it. I'm not going to be the one that lowers the program. I can only control that. After I leave and you do that, that's on you, man. Right?
Mhm.
I hate it. I will tell you that you're wrong, and I will probably get into a fist fight with you, or I would
Mhm.
have. I'm a little bit more seasoned, right? I could speak a little more eloquently now, but I hated it, and I was like, why would you even bring that up?
Yeah, how
Right?
dare you almost,
Because
right?
you're
Like,
thinking about it because of how it makes you look. If you
mm,
graduate X number of people more, it looks like you're doing a good job out here. And that is that is kind of the not even an American thing. Forget like Secret Service. In America, we have to have this is why we are who we are. Because we have these standards. Once we start chipping away at these standards, and everybody's like, well, I held Scott to these standards, but like John kind of got away with it. That's fine. Nobody's gonna know, right? And
no, everybody knows,
it,
and they talk about it, and they'll never forget it.
because that also actually, like what I'm saying is probably not a lot of people know because I just made it go away real quick, and I was like, we're not doing that. We're not. He's gonna do it again, and hopefully he passes, and then we can move on. And like I wanted the kid to pass, right? Like I want everybody that puts his name out there. Everybody that puts like sticks their neck out to try something that they could possibly fail. My hat's off to you, man. Like you, whether you pass or fail, as a segue, quick segue, but this is like my motivational speech for that. Whether you pass or fail, you are better than the people who sit on the sidelines and point fingers at you that never even tried. They don't
Never
even
try.
know. Teddy Roosevelt, right? Man in the arena. They don't even
Mhm.
know what it feels like to win or to lose. All they know is what to point a finger at you. So when you try something that you could possibly fail at, you have my respect. 100%. Like there's no right. Everybody else that's like, like I didn't try because of whatever reason. Like, oh, okay, it's fine. Don't point a finger at my guys, right? Win, pass or fail. So something like that
Mhm.
is you're bringing the floor down,
Mhm.
right? Instead of like a lot of people are like, well, the standard should be this, standard should be this, standard should be this. For big organizations, again, for big groups, for units like for CAT, keep that standard and enforce it. Because like that guy over there that made it through, I know exactly what he went through,
Mhm.
right? I can really, everybody's like, well, I don't like that guy. I'm like, cool, but he's one of us. He did everything that we did, everything that you did, right? From here on in, it's like, you do what you got to do, like in your career, right? You do what your career can handle. As an individual, this is the standard, and your standard should just keep moving up.
Mhm.
As an individual, as an individual, like whatever it is, whether it's the skills in your respective job, or whether it's your moral and ethical compass, right? Because I work on that to this day, every day. There's like a never-ending moral and ethical, like all the stuff that I read and study and practice, right? That's like a big thing. A lot of people like to read all these books and then they just send them to the land of shit that no one talks about anymore.
Yeah.
And like you have to practice these things. That's like the action that I talk about you taking for you, so you could build your self-worth. You got to put this stuff into action. Make your bed in the morning. It's not hard. I could
Right.
do it. If I could do it, you could do it, right? Like,
Right.
and those two different mindsets. The floor is for all of us to make sure that nobody gets below the floor, and right, you push people above it. As you as an individual, your standard should be constantly moving up. Because once you achieve that standard, you just raise it a little bit more. And you just
Yeah.
reach that one and you just raise it a little bit more. And there should be no end to that. You shouldn't just be like, you know what? It's like if I ask you, are you a good person? This is a trick question. Right? It's in my book, so it's like it's like I'm giving it away. I ask you, are you a good person? I love when I ask people that. They're like, yes, right? I am a good person. I've become a good person, right? And it's like versus the people that tell me I'm trying, right?
Mhm.
I'm doing my best. I'm one day at a time. Whatever it is that they say.
Mhm.
Most people are better than the one that say like I'm a good person because
Yeah, I've arrived.
they have
I've arrived.
they have
Yeah.
stopped. It's
Right.
like a constant endeavor towards what they believe is good, which constantly keeps moving up. These other guys just say it because it's the right thing to do because they don't, right? They don't even think about it. They're like, yeah, I'm the best, right? I'm a good person. I'm the best. I could do like no wrong at this point. And those are like, it's the same thing with you as an individual. With whatever it is that you're trying to improve upon yourself. Go back to the hot wash that we talked about. Give
Mhm.
yourself the hot wash, right? You yelled at your wife, right? You had a bad day, right? Supervisor yelled at you. You come home, something happens, you yell at your wife. Was it necessary? Right? Was it like, was something, can you have that conversation with yourself and just be like, I lashed out at her because I was already angry at something else? Like, that's the truth. How many of us have done that? Right? Like,
I mean,
like it,
everybody can relate to that,
right
man.
before
Yeah,
hospital,
everybody.
right? Like, apologies, right? So it's like it, and I've done it, and to go back afterwards and just say, I'm sorry, I was an asshole. Right?
Mhm.
You do that. How many people does that thought not even cross their mind? And you just go
It's
away.
they'll justify it. They'll justify their behavior.
You
Yeah.
you do the hot wash and you retroactively come up with reasons how that was okay. Oh, well,
You know, one of the things we haven't talked about, and on that particular example is, and going back to the floor and the standard, and holding everybody accountable to the standard, starting with yourself, is the psyche, and now the decision making process, and then going back to esteem versus worth, specific to what have you done now to that person when they know they didn't meet the standard, when they know that you know, and you know that they know they didn't meet the standard, and you push them through. What does that set them up for, and how does that trickle down ultimately over the years of the time as they advance through their career and they're in charge of other people, and they're in charge of special, projects and things like that? How does that impact them, and how do they make decisions now based on the fact that they know they never met that standard? They know they got by, they know they slipped by, and if I got by one time, maybe I just fudge the rules, or I fudge
yeah,
this honesty
yeah,
thing or this integrity thing. Like, that is cancerous, man. Like, and
that's what you,
whoever put that person through, it's they're responsible for that. They hold some responsibility for that. Now, I'm sure there's people that know they got by, and they recognize that they got by, and they self-reflected on that, and they go, man, like, I don't know how that happened to me, but I don't like the way I feel about that, and I'm going to do everything I can to make this right going forward, so that, if this ever comes up, I have, like you said before, like, I've made everything as clean as it possibly can be, so that I can say I did the work to at least earn respect after that. Because if you lack that self-respect, right, or that self-worth is the term that you used, man, how does that affect how you impact yourself and other people going down the line? And it goes back to what we just said. You will justify all the bullshit all the time, and easily sit back into the corner with those folks that are just bitching and going, yeah, that sucks, when you were part of that problem to begin with.
you 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 hit it on the head where what they learn is to take the quick and easy path. They learn that if somebody's my friend, I might get what I want. They learn that the image that you're portraying is more important than the actual capability. Right?
100%. Yeah.
And and I and then like moving forward, uh, I talk about like I love watching a lot of uh, I don't want to call I don't know what to call them, like people on YouTube and right, all these other like social media platforms, and they have all these discussions. A lot of psychology, like, and I read a lot of psychology, I read a lot of philosophy, I read of right, and I listen to a lot of it too, especially with like well renowned people. A lot of them, when I was going through my issues, I listened to them. One of the things we talk about is like the Carl Jung and the dark self, right?
Mhm.
Like trying to like go like internalize that. So everything we just talked about, like they know that they didn't meet the standard, or they know that they got something because somebody gave it to them, whether they deserved it or not. But like, let's say here that you didn't deserve it, right? Because it's an opinion. When things are appointed, especially, right? Like it in in appointed positions, it's different. because everybody wants to say like, well, why didn't I get promoted over this guy?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
and you're taking a hit on your worth because of like an opinion of someone else,
Mm.
right? When I became a team leader, I was going to force myself to get that position. So I took the test that we took and I got like a 99 out of 100. I was doing all these things that like there would be a mutiny if they didn't promote me. And I made
Hmm.
sure that I was doing all these things. And when it came to it, I got promoted and I became a team leader, right? On counter assault team. And and I made sure that I was doing the things that I could control, knowing that it's just an opinion-based thing. I might never have had that position. I just set myself up.
That's the reality of that, right? Yes.
That's what that is. And then
Mm.
we think that defines us somehow, that I don't get that position, regardless of like if I'm on the counter assault team and I make fun of the guys too. I was like, I was like, oh, like you're a real boy now, right? You graduated, you know how to do all this stuff. You're a real boy. And if I'm a real boy and I know how to do this stuff and I am good at it and I'm dangerous, and going back to like the dark self, I'll talk about that in a second, right? I know I am highly capable, but because of someone's opinion, I can't move up, at least not for now. If I wait a little bit longer, all right, maybe I can get there. Like, part of it is impatience, right? We want everything now.
100%.
What's the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? I want it now, right? Like,
Yeah, right.
what's her name? Veruca.
Veruca Salt.
Yep.
And I've seen that movie a million times. I got kids.
Did that to
So
my wife and my daughter when they're hurt.
buy me that squirrel, daddy.
All right, I want it now. And
I want that squirrel.
but like you can't. Again, this goes back to like if you build yourself up, that stuff will mean less because it's like, well, I don't like him, but he'll kill me, right? Like it's like you know who that is, right? It's like I
Mhm.
don't like him. I'm gonna avoid him like the plague. I had a guy that couldn't even be in an elevator with me because he was afraid, and it was like he decided that he was going to try to hurt me in like political again, not politically,
Yep.
career wise,
Professionally. Yep.
and I just did everything I could to just make his life miserable by thriving. And then he couldn't even look at me in the face, right? And it's like you know, you don't have
Mhm.
to make the decision at some point. Like I'll get it eventually because I'm not going to stop. And if I don't get it, it kind of means less at this point because I know who I am. So going
Right.
back to like the Carl Jung stuff, like the dark self and all that, he says like you have to get in touch with that dark self in order for you to find your to find yourself, right? And that is part of this like path for all these people that are having like any kind of self-doubt. I'm going to say all these words and we're probably going to associate with one of them. Self-doubt, self-loathing,
Mhm.
self-hatred,
Mhm.
despair, right? Imposter syndrome, right?
Mhm.
Like it's like we just keep going, right? And all of these things are based off of like you not being in a positive light by some people. And again, if you're not doing the right things and you're substandard in your job or you're breaking the rules on purpose for self-interest, those are all things that one, you could control. Two, you don't deserve anything. Right? Like, so if you're mad because of that, then you definitely have no one to blame but yourself. But if you're doing all of the things that are right, you maintain your fitness, right? You're you're maintaining all of your administrative stuff is up to date. And well, we all forget it, right? Like it's in the government,
There's a lot of stuff. There's a
e-government,
lot of stuff.
there's a
Yeah.
thousand things that you have to write. You get rid of all that stuff, and then you start working on your skills in your profession, right? I'm gonna be the best. Like or I have a lot of medical training too. It's like you're a paramedic and you have to administer, whatever the medication is to someone. And you're like, I'm going to make sure that all these calculations are already done in my head. So all I have to do is refer to them and adjust as needed.
Mm.
And you're rattling the stuff off quick. You're professional. You're precise. You know how to administer. You know how to start a line on someone. You knew how to do it right. Because I just talked to this about somebody because we're talking about something similar. And I was like, you need to make sure that you do that when you don't blow a vein and you put a needle in my arm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which
Performance on demand,
right? Which happened, and
mm-hmm.
and I was like, we got to be better, right? And then once you get all that stuff done, it's like you like, okay, look, this guy, it goes back to what we were talking about. I can't say anything about this guy now until you mess up. We're all going to mess up at some point, right? Like, and then I can hold that against you. And if I discount everything else you did and I only focus on
Yeah.
that one thing, then
Mm-hmm.
I'm the asshole supervisor that's doing that to you. And you have to recognize that. Just be like,
Mm-hmm.
understand that that's part of this game that you're playing, right? And don't do like I did, where I'm like telling my supervisors to go to hell, right? And this is like one occurrence. It's the same thing that I talked about earlier. It's the same
Right.
version, right? But you could do it in a way that's like, hey, I respectfully, I'm not going to listen to this anymore. And if you have anything to tell me professionally, please let me know. But like, I have better things to do in order to fix all the problems that I just caused. So please, like, understand that you could always make it worse, but the things that you could control, you have to be able to do that. And that dark self, to find that is part of all the stuff I just said, self-loathing, like all that stuff. Like, you can't stand yourself. Stop for a minute. And let me ask you a question, because I had a kid that we were talking about this stuff. He's like, how do I get people to follow me? And I said, you don't, right? No one's just going to follow you because you're in charge. It's not the way it works. They might follow your authority and you say, hey, go stand over there. And but in terms of leadership, it's not the way it works.
It's not the same thing. Authority and leadership are not the same. All right.
But it's like, what have you done to show them, right? And the kids, the kids like asking me how I do that. I'm like, well, let me ask you a question. And I started asking them questions again, like I always do. I never give them an answer. And I was like, what do you do that's bad? He's like, oh, nothing. I don't really do anything bad. I'm like, okay. You drink? Like, I have all these bottles behind me that I haven't opened because like we have so much alcohol in the house. People keep giving me gifts and like, what are they? I'm not an alcoholic. I can't, right? I can't open all these.
I got them all over my table here too. They're just sitting here.
We're
full.
just like, we have a one open and it takes us like a month to get through, right? Maybe longer. But it's like, do you drink? He's like, no, I don't really drink. I'm like, do you do this? Do you do this? Do you do this? Right? Do you look at things on the internet you're not supposed to? He's like, oh, well. I'm like, oh, I got you. Right? Like, what does your wife think about that? All right. And he's like, well, she doesn't like it, but she kind of like looks the other way. And I was like, oh, okay. So you're dumb. I don't want to know what you're doing with it, but you're doing something that hurts her. That knowing that it hurts her, but you're going to do it anyway? For what? Right? How about you defy her permission and you're doing it for you? Because that's like the dark self we're talking about. Like, nobody talks about when they do stuff like that. They look on, because nobody's looking, right? Nobody's
right.
Nobody's going to judge you, but you do it anyway for some momentary like pleasure, right? And then you turn around and you wonder why people are seeing right through you and they won't follow you as a leader. And like, I know those things aren't directly correlated, but add 10, 15 things that you do in the dark when nobody's looking, that you can fix that dark self, right? That's part of it. And the other part of it is like, what have you done? What dangerous things do you know to keep these supervisors from eating you alive? Mm-hmm. Those are the two things. Like, one aspect, again, is the public one. Is like, what do they know? They're like, well, John will kill me literally in the elevator, right? The elevator door will open and there'll be a carcass like laying there, right? So I'm not gonna push his buttons when I'm alone with him, right? Which, sad to say, back when I was just like a brash idiot, like those are possibilities. Now I'm in control of myself because I don't need to do that. Be like, bro, that's your problem. Your problem is your problem now. Like, I'm not your problem. If I'm your demon, like, have at it, man. Like, check under your bed at night right before you go to bed. I promise you, I may or may not be there. I don't know, right? And that's how you deal with that. The other side of it is like all these things that you do that hurt you, that make your self-esteem go lower. Why are you looking at that stuff?
Mm.
Stop, right? Like, do yourself, go for a walk, man. Like, work on your fitness, work on your image. I don't like the way I look. You can control that right now, right? Not
Right.
tomorrow. You don't need to buy a $2,000 fitness plan, right? Which you're not going to use, right? You can send the money somewhere else right? Put it in your kid's college. Even doing
100.
things like that. When I used to get paid, my wife checked my kids. I've been saving for college for years, and she checked it. She's like, "Where did those money come from?" I was like, every time I got paid, I would pay her. Right?
Mhm.
I just did it every paycheck, and I wouldn't even look at it. I would just send the money, and that's it. And then all of a sudden, poof! I was like, "Oh my god! Thank God I did it. I don't know. I don't have to worry about it now." And that was like for me to be a good father, to
Mm.
provide for my daughter, right? And like you're telling me that my self-esteem didn't just go up a little bit, right? By her knowing that, and my self-worth even more, that goes up a little bit because I did the right thing for my child before I bought, like, I don't know, I'm looking around my desk about like the crap that I could just pull up that's needless, stupid crap. But something like, do I need another pair of sneakers? No, I have like
Right.
4 pairs right? Do I need like another bottle of liquor? Definitely not, right? Like, that's not a thing. But these are all little things that you could control that add up. Then do the other side. What and the dangerous thing is not like you go learn jujitsu or learn how to fire a gun. It's
I'm
like
glad you said that.
the policy in and out. Because when they throw something at you and they say something to you, you're like, well, technically, this is the policy, right? And they're like, well, it's not the policy. And I was like, well, this says otherwise. So if there's a new policy that's updated, please, sir, like, educate me
Inform me. Right.
so
Yeah.
that I know. Uh, I did that the last like 5 years in service. I would just read policy. And when somebody would say something, I'd be like, well, technically that's not like, the case. So if you want to do that, just send me an email. We'll gladly execute that order. And they hated it because they didn't want to send an email because they knew it was
Mhm.
wrong.
Mhm.
Right. And then when they tell me to just do it anyway, I'd be like, not doing that.
Right.
We'd have executive orders from the office of the president when I ended my career, right? Like, I was running operations for the dignitary division. And we get executive orders from the office of the president, and they were legally not, we're like it was just messed up, right? Like, there's like wording that needs to follow. So I was like, hey, I need this to say certain this so I can pay for all this crap overseas. And they're like, well, just do it anyway. I'm like, no, that's not
Yeah.
how it works, right? I go, I have it all set up. I reserved all this and this and this. I just had to hit the button that says pay, right? I just need you guys to do your job and go
Mhm.
back and get it. Like, just the wording. It's like, whatever. We do it all the time. I got 30 more of these that the big guy just signed, right? It's fine. But they don't want to put themselves out because it seems like they're
Oh,
right?
there's conflict,
Yeah,
like now I have to go have this awkward conversation or whatever else rather than
policy.
being looked at, hey, let's make sure we get this right. I want to make sure this is right. So, everything is squared away here. Like, we just need it to say this, that could be the other side of that conversation. Like, oh, there's some adjustments that need to be made here. And once we make it the first time, we
Old
won't have to
roll
make
with
it
my
again.
point.
It's done.
Just
We're done.
just get this,
We're done.
and then you know this policy, and you're dangerous because they'll come down and be like, oh, you need to pay these people 5 hours of overtime. I was like, well, I can't do that because last time we got inspected, we got our asses kicked when we broke this rule. I can give them 3.5. I can't give them the extra hour and a half because of these rules. And it's like, right? Like, sometimes I could justify it, sometimes I couldn't. And they'd be like, right? Because it's like their friend and they're trying to like do right by their friend. And I'm like, no, I get it. Right? Like, I want to pay him too. But I can't do that right now with all the crap that's being looked on in the service because of July 13th and because of all this stuff. Like, we have to kind of get our paperwork and admin all squared away so that when they come in and they look at it, they're like, all right, this is clean. at least
Right.
in what I could control, at least in the environment that I can control. There's other, like I was a first line supervisor. That's how I ended my career. So I didn't really rise too high, didn't try too hard, right? I did try. I mean, I didn't try too hard. I did try, right? So, um,
But
but
it's not what you wanted to do.
no, I had these aspirations and they changed over time, but they all
Yep.
involved me being a first line supervisor. I loved being that conduit in between. I was good operationally. And then when I would go out with a team, right, and towards the end, I would do a lot of like details. So I'd wear a suit and I'd be a detail leader for a lot of foreign heads of state. And I had all these young kids who were just like going off on a tangent, right? Like we had all.
No, we're not at all, because I think because I think you're saying what I think a lot of people listen to the show, where they are in their career, right? And a lot of the audience is that person right now. They have gotten to a certain stage in whatever career path that they're in whatever industry they happen to be in, and they have the opportunity to influence people, and they like that because they're seeing the change, they're seeing the impacts they're making. They're tangible, they're subjective and objective things that because they have done the work for themselves to get there, they know how to pass that on to somebody else. And that's important for everybody else that they're surrounded by. And as they start to go through their career path, whatever their aspirations are, they can carry that with them. Man, I think that's really noble. And I think that's a place a lot of people are, where they're like, look, is this even the right job for me anymore? Because I don't really want to promote. Like, I don't want to be part of that club over there, whatever it is. It's Stars and Bars, or it's, some special team somewhere that does these things. Like on paper, that makes sense. I mean, in the government, there's G's before all of this, right? There's a letter G before everything. Like, do I want to promote to that level? Like, what's really in store for me there? Like, is it just a bigger paycheck that I'm looking for, which, all right, has implications for sure, but what does it do in terms of how I can continue to control these things, and then control and help other people control things in order to make it better for everybody else, leaving it better than I found it, kind of thing. And I think people struggle with that. I think they look like, if I don't promote, or if I don't make it to this particular level, whatever I aspired to be, that somehow I have failed. And again, that's that looking at the darker side, right? And internally looking inward and going, like, what does this really mean? And again, like, where have I placed value on things? And this goes back to the thing you said about being squared away on the administrative side. A lot of talk about, like, hey, there's hard skills you have to have. Yes, and you need to work on those. This is a constant thing. And you talked about like this, you didn't say this, but it came to my mind with the concept of, you're constantly working to achieve something that is unachievable. And that is just to continue to get better. And whether that's shooting, whether that's fighting, whether that's administrative paperwork, because that's all of it's going to change all the time. Like, your ability is going to change. You're going to have the struggles. You're going to have the successes. The policy is going to change. So you're going to need to continue to review that. You're going to need to continue how to learn how to continue to navigate through that. Again, it's this constant pursuit of something that is really never fully, you never fully arrive at. And oftentimes in that process, you're looking around at, like, well, who do I compare myself to? And that's where things get weird, right? Like, that game of comparison, like, well, I want to be where this guy is, and he got to here, and here's the things that he's doing, so maybe I should try some of that, rather than sticking to the fundamentals. And again, that going back to being dangerous with the fundamentals, whatever they happen to be. Again, hard skills versus soft skills versus administrative skills, and all the things that you can work on for yourself. And put yourself in a position of opportunity when it happens to show up for you. So there's and yes, there's relationships, and there's all kinds of things that go into that. But the way you've kind of presented this is, like, when you put all that other, it's not bullshit, because it's reality. It's things that happen. Like, again, and certainly the introspection story you're talking about with the guy who's looking at stuff on the internet that is hurting his wife, but he's doing it anyway. That kind of stuff is like going back to the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. All that stuff adds up, and it puts you in a position to self-reflect and again, honestly ask yourself the question, like, am I doing the things I need to be doing? But going back to not taking the promotion and being that in that position of leadership where you can influence things, there's another thing here that comes along with that, and that is passing standards and moving through the ranks and getting all the experiences, good, bad, indifferent stuff. Is, I guess, the setting yourself up for successes in being a leader and making change, and being in a position to ultimately walk away from this thing and be able to look back and go, you know what? I did all the things I needed to do, all the things I was supposed to do. Here's the things that I didn't achieve. That's okay, because what I'm focused on is all the things that I did do well, all the things that I did do right. And that's how I want to be measured. Like, and certainly there were failures and mistakes and maybe made some bad decisions along the way, but those were all part of the successes ultimately that I achieved. And, you know, like you were saying, like I always respect somebody that attempts something that they could fail at. Like, if you constantly go in with like, I'm judging this based on the win or the loss versus on what did I get from the win or the loss or the success or the failure, you're gonna find yourself in a place like this empty space where you're trying to decide, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I the person who I thought I was, or whatever else? And that's not a bad place to be if you can sit back and again focus on the right things. So I want to change gears. I want to change gears here a little bit, because I mean, you've talked about so many things, and you know, starting with your obviously your own career and going through the path and walking us through some stuff, particularly about how to self diagnose some of the things that you're doing or not doing, and giving some solutions on how to make them better. And that's what the show's about, really, at the end of the day, no matter what angle we're attacking it from. So you've moved on. Like, that career is over, right? Achieved some things, didn't achieve some things, you know, maybe, or sorry, you said you had some aspirations and those changed, which is good. That's inevitable too. That's going to happen. So I wonder what like, what's going on now? And I'm going to ask this question before you answer that one, because we talked offline and this is kind of an inside joke. So when I say it, people go like, what the hell? But are you wearing pants today, John? Are you wearing pants behind the screen here, or or are you just in your shorts? So it's
I got shorts on. Right.
Yeah, great.
And
so the inside joke is like, since you've retired, you haven't worn pants a day since you're retired.
Not one.
And yeah, not one time. And I love that, because that's just like one of those, like, I get to do this and I'm going to do this now, right? And so now you have this whole rest of your, you know, your life and how to apply all of these things that you've learned from this career, these chapters in your life that you've been through and in your career. Maybe talk a little bit about how you're spending your time now and what your aspirations are now, and where you're taking this stuff, because there's some stuff in the works. I'd love to hear you talk about it and share it with people.
I appreciate that. Just I'm going to try and just kind of prompt me, or, well, first things first is, like, I wrote a book, and it's about all the stuff we just talked about, right? It's about you being able to control what you can control about you, and how to climb out of issues that you might have, right? The book goes on this path. It starts off, and I talk about egos. I talk about self-worth and self-esteem. I talk about all the stuff that we talked about, kind of like it's just chapter to chapter. And then it goes all the way down into basically where you're in despair. And I talk about myself when I was in, like, the worst place. Just briefly, it's not like, the book's not about me. There's a lot of stories with me in it, but a lot of stories about other people. And then there's, like, the concepts that I'm trying to portray. Cause, like, it's about concepts, taking step by step, going through this, going all the way to the end, and of how, like, you just go all the way to the end of making yourself as strong as possible and formidable in this world, in your environment, which you could control, and then just taking it from there, and where can you bring from there? Because I don't believe that there's, I call them journeys. Like, we all go on our journeys, right? Sometimes we have more than one journey. Sometimes you're on a journey by yourself. Sometimes you're on a journey with somebody, like, we're on the same stretch of path for a while, the two of us, and then we go our separate ways. The journey, man, is like what I talk about pretty much the entire book. And it's I think those are what define us as people. And everything we just talked about, our identities are tied to these jobs.
Hmm.
You leave these jobs, you think you lost a part of yourself. But really it's like if you build your identity that like the goodness is in you. So it doesn't matter where you are. That place will thrive and be better with you having been in it. And then you take those memories with you as you go on your next journey. And your identity isn't like, oh my God, I'm no longer a cat guy, right? It just crushes my soul. What am I going to do with my life? All this stuff. It's like, no, man, like I'm John and the goodness was in me and I'll take it with me to the next thing that I do. And that's kind of
Mm.
like what the book is. And there's like no end to it. You just keep, you can read it more than once, but like, it's like, that's one thing that I've been doing. And, I'm setting up, uh, to kind of have my own show to talk about this kind of stuff.
Oh, good.
I would love to to do that and just talk about just like leadership and talk about things that like why would we self sabotage? Why can you like how can you and then there's some other quirky stuff that I kind of want to talk about to make it fun. But like it's those are kind of like the things that I'm trying to do because like I believe that today more than ever the world needs more leaders and heroes than we do kind of a lot of these other, I don't want to call them fads or kind of like with these the political tensions that we have. We need more leaders and heroes that just kind of like get you to control what you can control so that you're not influenced by things that you kind of shouldn't be influenced by. Or if you are, you know
Mhm.
the truth and you can just wash it off and make decisions of your own accord. Like you don't have to,
Mm.
your decision doesn't have to be somebody else's decision. These are the things that I'd like to talk about. And then I'm just creating a leadership course based off of these. And it's kind of unique where not unique, other people do it too. But for me, a lot of people is like my version of leadership is to make you stronger as an individual, right? Like all the things we
Mhm.
just talked about. You
Yep.
make you as strong as possible. That's the guy I'm going to follow,
Mhm.
right? That it, whether or not you're in charge of me or not, like I'm just going to look up to you and I'm going to ask you. I'm like, hey Scott, how do I do this? Right? Like, oh, I'm having a hard time, or is just I'm in this bad place, or I need that kind of answer. I don't know how to do it. Like, where do I find this? And then you as a strong person, now I want to follow you. Before, like if you're having self doubts, even if you're in position of authority, it's hard for people. Like they see through it. People are smart, man.
Mhm.
Like we give them. Everybody says like the more people you collect, the collective IQ goes down, right? Like
Yeah.
there's some truth to that. But in these interactions that we have, because most people are interacting with thousands of people, standing in front of like, leading thousands of people, it's you're more of an administrator at that point. Administrator of a school or organization, you're the CEO, whatever it is, right?
Fac yeah, like a facilitator.
But in
Mhm.
these interactions that we're talking about, these leadership interactions, they are very important and people are smart and they see you. And if you're weak, they know you're weak. Right. If you're full of
Mhm.
shit, they know you're full of shit. And I believe that if you can strengthen yourself, you're not going to be perfect ever. If you have those aspirations, this is like not going to happen, right? Like I wish, right? You might get as close as you can, but then like the standard, like I told you, you should just keep bumping that standard up, right? But if you make people as strong as possible and you do these things, you tell yourself the truth and you uncover this like dirt that's like underneath that you're kind of ignoring, you're going to become a strong person. You're
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think there's been and part of it is you mentioned how many of these people are out there, how many people you put in the room. Things like social media technology has created platforms for people to be this maybe so to speak like a false prophet, false leaders. And I think it's been around long enough now, and you've had enough. There's been enough time where you've had an entire generation of folks come through that really haven't had any quote unquote real experiences with leadership. They're seeking it. They are. I think they're out there. They're
you don't know
looking
what it looks
for it.
like. You
Exactly.
don't know what it looks
They don't know what it looks like, so they don't recognize that if they did come across it, it's tough to navigate. And I think that's Again, when we talk about even the place that you came from, I mean, when you look at, like, what is the lineage of that in the places that you come from, the places you're spending time in? We talked about facilitation, leadership, authority, mentorship, those kind of things. Those are all very individual skills.
They're
Like,
all
authority is not necessarily a skill. Applying it appropriately is, or knowing when and when not to. And I think it's definitely a skill. But I think it all gets very convoluted as folks are out there searching for it. And again, going back to a younger generation of folks, and it's really easy to look back and go, oh, the new generation is soft, and they don't understand, and whatever else. And maybe there's truth in both of those things, but at the same time, it's like, well, what are we doing to show them differently, and what are they exposed to, and how many folks out there are actually exposing good stuff, and what does that platform look like for them? So, like, those types of journeys, those types of missions, I think, are super important. And I think people are searching for it, maybe unconsciously, or kind of, again, mindlessly scrolling, and they see something and they hear something and they kind of relate to it, and like, oh, that's it. And they latch onto it, but they don't really know the person behind it, that there's no real substance to it. And, who is that person? What are they really, where are they really coming from? How much dirt do they have, underneath, that they haven't exposed? And we see that constantly, which is even more like, now they've got this hero in the cape. There's some interesting stuff going on in the mill side of things right now, like in the country, with a particular character who wrote a book and whatever, and propped himself up, and then it appears that he propped himself up, and to a pedestal, and rose to its certain ranks, and got a lot of attention, made some money doing it. Other people saw that as, that's my hero, that's my guy, that's what I want to aspire to be, and I need to do those things, and I need to have that kind of an attitude, I need to have that kind of a disposition, and I need to practice these things in my life, and talk like this, and act like this, and dress like this, and look like this. And then something happens, where an exposure happens, and in this case, for this particular person, and folks they don't know what to do. The person that has put that person up on the pedestal doesn't know what to do with that, and they will hang on to it, and they've attached themselves to that as, no, this is the truth, this is the way, kind of thing. And it's amazing to me how long they'll hold on to that stuff for, and defend it, and going back to the word we used before, justify it. And again, not all of it is wrong or bad, but there are some pieces of it where, like, do you know how to differentiate the good from the bad, or the wrong from the right? And I think that's where a lot of people are struggling right now. When we're looking, even our leaders, we look at, and contextually, the presidents of the United States of America. How far do we got to go back? Like, the four that you worked for, and in the ones before that, like, what did we attach ourselves to there, and what were our expectations? Where did those, what did we value? And are we in a position, to your point, to make a decision for ourselves, to figure this out on our own, to make a call for ourselves? And I think that is the skill set that is lacking for the world, but more specifically for America, and particularly for American men. They're like, man, where do I go for answers? Where do I go for guidance? What should I be aspiring to be? It's a tough place to be. It's a really tough place to be, and I feel for people that really are challenged by that, and are locking into or attaching themselves to somebody else's ideals without truly understanding, what their own are, and how to navigate those things and make decisions on their own. So, I mean, what you're talking about doing, I think, is a super important mission, man. And, again, contextually, going back to, like, your experiences, I think it obviously could be very relevant to folks that can relate to, the type of work that you did, in some of the stories I'm sure you're sharing in the book about yourself, and about others, and the people that you're helping.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and we're gonna try, right? And the one thing I say, I don't say, like, it's the one. It's a lot of things, but everything you just said, to be able to think for yourself, for you to gain that freedom, that's what I call it. It's freedom, right? We live in the United States, and it's the freedom for you to be able to think independently without having someone tell you what to think. Not
Mm-hmm.
me, not anybody else on this planet. You draw from us all these I mean, I read all these books about all these about all these people, and I have like the book I'm reading now, and I have my counsel.
Mhm.
I counsel the people that I'm like, all right, what would that person do in this instance, right? What would this person do in innovation? What would this person do with like leadership? What would this person do to scare the life out of somebody, right?
Mhm.
And they're my counsel. They're the ones that I look to be like, well, how did they do it?
Mhm.
None of them. I'm not a disciple of them
Yeah.
where I'm gonna be that because that's unattainable anyway. Once I put somebody on a pedestal, never gonna reach it, right?
Yep.
And but for you to gain all of this and then become yourself, and I kind of use the example like thousands of years ago, you had Alexander the Great, then you had Hannibal, and then Julius Caesar, and all these guys. And Alexander was first; these guys came afterwards. And Hannibal and Caesar studied Alexander,
The previous guy. Yeah.
right? And they didn't try to be Alexander. They just studied what he did, and then they tried to use it to accomplish what they did. And then they became themselves, right?
Mhm.
Like Socrates, Plato, like Aristotle. They were all affiliated with each other, and they didn't try to be Socrates. They
Mhm.
became themselves. But they studied all this stuff from all these other people. So it's the same thing on social media. And I think that's like the danger of social media. And I'll be the first to say, but you don't have to listen to anything I say. Try to tell yourself the truth. I implore you to tell yourself the truth, man. And if you can get past your ego, which is really what the block right here is, right? Because your ego blocks learning. And this is what I'm trying to help people do. Get past that, make your own decisions, do what you got to do, right? I will foster you and encourage you, right? Like I'm in the other part of it is like for us, for me to sit in my position to say that I'm done with my journey is also incorrect.
Yep.
And one of the reasons that I lasted so long on Cat, one of the reasons that I can still do what I'm doing and feel you know, still feel like my best days are ahead of me is because I keep innovating. I keep leveling up. I keep like learning to see what's like social media. We didn't grow up. We're the same age. W-
Right.
We didn't grow up. You remember the rotary phone, right?
Yeah.
And
Of course.
we'll talk about it with like my daughter. She's like, "What are you talking about? Like you had a rotary?"
Yeah.
Yeah, like if I messed up the number, if I got to like the seventh digit and I messed it up,
Got to start over.
what I got
Got to start over with it.
and like so like social media, learning all this stuff, like you have to innovate. You can't sit there and be like, "Well, this is how we did it 20 years ago, and this is the way you have to do it today."
That is a pitfall for a lot of
I
folks these
move
days, for
forward
sure.
with all of us. This is
Mhm.
like we're gonna do this together. If you want, we can do this together. You're not alone, right? Like I talk about this. I say it all the time to all my guys and all the girls that like I talk to. I'm like, hey, like you have to find the others. They're out there. They're looking for you, and you also have to be looking for them because they
Right.
need your help and you need their help, right? And together, whenever somebody will be like, hey, like what about this person? Do you know this person? I'll be like, yeah, he's one of us, right? And when I say that, I
Yep.
don't mean like is like it's just like he is also in this mindset where he's trying to be better. He's trying to move forward. He's trying to be a good person. He just doesn't know how. But he's one of us, man. Put your arm around him and bring him along. See what you
Mhm.
can do, right? Like that's like how I want to move forward. These are the messages that I believe people need, right? You might not even realize that you need it, but these are the messages that people need. It's not always about like getting the position that you want or, all of the assignments that you want. Sometimes it's just about like the things that you could control and going forward.
I love it, man. I mean, it's a super strong message, and I think it's a very noble mission, and it's something that I've tried to do in my own life, and professionally and personally as well, and try to help as many people as I can because people did that for me. I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at any level. And when you, if you broke any of it down, whether that's like I said, a professional, a dad, a human, you know, um, a friend, any of that stuff. I took lessons from other folks, and I had to learn those on my own. But I always had people, and still have people that I reach out to for very specific things and very specific aspects. And again, I think getting caught in a silo or in an echo chamber is a dangerous thing, but it's also a very easy thing to do in today's environment. So having resources and more people that are doing it and talking about it, I'm stoked to have had the opportunity to have you talk about it on this platform. We don't get into sort of the depths of what you described and what you articulated that often. So there are folks out there that can really do this well, and I'm very discerning about when and where this kind of shows up in the show, but I'm certain this will impact people at so many different levels for a lot of reasons, and which makes me just super grateful to have had you today, man. So that said, before we kind of sign off and end this thing, does the book have a title yet? And that's question number one. And number two, when can we expect for it to be out?
I'm working on it. So
I love that. It's a journey, right?
It's this constant endeavor. I got to give it to somebody for publishing because I could keep upgrading it forever. But I'm working.
Yeah.
So
I get that about you. You'll never be satisfied. As soon as it goes to print, you'll be like, oh, we got to do a revised edition.
Just like pieces, turn it in and go grill the burgers, right? Like, just like stop down it, right?
Well, I love that you have the time and space to do that, right? Rather than trying to put something out, that you are, again, just back to this refinement process of making it better and trying to make sure you're putting out the best product possible, knowing that you won't be satisfied probably once it's out. There'll be something else. Again, I think it's a sign of a true leader and a champion at that level, or as it relates to just, again, doing the things and living the things that you've been talking about. So I'm not surprised, but I'm anxious. So I definitely, like, if I want to be on the first edition list, when it comes out, you make sure you let me know. I'll make sure and promote the hell out of that thing when it comes out. But in the meantime, keep doing your thing, man. And again, I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time out today to share, your journey, your story, the insights, the personal stuff. And if that's any, kind of prelude to the things that we'll continue to see you do going forward, coming from, and again, I think a lot of this is very interesting to me, given like where you came from. And that's not it. That's not the only thing, but again, inside the United States Secret Service, like that's the thing we don't hear about very much. I told you what my limited kind of insight was until I got to have some intimate experiences with folks from inside that institution. And so I think that's interesting to people too. And I know you're leveraging that a little bit from the, inside the book with the stories that you have because of those experiences. And I think that'll be interesting to people because I know you'll educate people. I've read the preface of the book. That was the thing that really intrigued me. I was like, man, there's some really good stuff in here, and it's not all about one thing. There's many things, but they all tie into one another. So anyhow, that said, I think it'll be I know it'll be an interesting read, but I think it'll be entertaining too. You have a good sense of humor. And from what I hear, yeah, you're a little bit of a goofball when you're not trying to be professional. And I appreciate that about you, man. So thanks again for your time, John. I wish you all the best. And like I said, whatever I can do to help you spread the message about what you're doing and how you're doing it, don't hesitate to ask, man. I'm here.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.